Tensions are rising tonight in Portland, Oregon, where state officials are locked in a legal battle with the White House over whether the president has the authority to send National Guard troops into the city. The case has now landed in federal court, with a ruling expected later this week. At the heart of the dispute is the question, who decides when a city is truly in crisis, the local leaders who live there, or the President of the United States? Narration/script body. On Saturday, the president announced he was ordering U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to what he described as war-ravaged Portland. He went further, declaring he would authorize the use of full force if necessary, to protect federal property, including immigration and customs enforcement facilities, which he said were under siege from Antifa and other domestic terrorists. But Oregon officials tell a very different story. They say Portland is not a war zone at all. While protests have taken place outside the city's ICE facility, often drawing around 100 people on recent nights, local police described the events as relatively small in scale. Yes, there have been sporadic incidents of vandalism, noise complaints from neighbors, and the use of tear gas and pepper balls. But according to local authorities, Portland is not a city under siege. Instead, residents have been posting photos and videos online under the trending hashtag #war-ravaged-Portland, showing families enjoying a sunny fall weekend, restaurants and shops open, and children playing in parks. The president, however, paints a far darker picture. In a string of recent speeches, he has repeatedly described Portland as anarchy in the streets. "This is like nobody's ever seen before," he said. "They've just burned the place down. People are dying. These are professional agitators, anarchists, the radical left." He even claimed Portland could be solved in 2 minutes if federal forces were allowed to fully intervene. Tonight's court hearing in Portland brought those opposing views into sharp focus. Federal Judge Michael Simon did not immediately issue a ruling but scheduled another session for Friday morning. At stake is not just the deployment of National Guard troops to Portland, but also a broader question of presidential power, states' rights, and the use of military force on U.S. soil. Interview segment, Attorney General. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield, who filed the lawsuit to block the deployment, argues the president is overstepping his legal authority. "The legal grounds for our lawsuit are based in common sense," he said. "The U.S. military is not trained for law enforcement. That is not their role. And under our laws, the president can only federalize the National Guard under very extreme conditions, an invasion, or rebellion, or when he cannot enforce federal law. None of those conditions exist here in Oregon. Absolutely none." Rayfield says Portland has a functioning police department, a sheriff's office, state police, and an elected district attorney who is actively prosecuting crimes. He even pointed out that Portland police consider policing the city's nightlife more challenging than dealing with the protests outside the ICE facility. According to the state's court filings, the president has relied on social media clips, some even outdated from 2020, rather than current intelligence to describe Portland as a burning, lawless city. Rayfield added, "This isn't about safety. This is about politics. We are seeing an effort to normalize the use of the U.S. military in our cities, from California, to Washington, D.C., to Memphis, and now in Oregon. We filed quickly because we want to draw a clear line in the sand. This is un-American, it is unlawful, and we will fight it." Broader context. Portland has long been a political lightning rod. During the Black Lives Matter protests 5 years ago, the city saw some of the most sustained demonstrations in the country, often drawing the president's ire. Now, once again, it is a flashpoint. But Portland is not the only city in the crosshairs. Over the weekend, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker revealed that the administration plans to deploy 100 federal troops to Chicago against his wishes. Meanwhile, Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee confirmed that federal authorities will be arriving in Memphis sometime this week. The pattern is clear: the president is moving to assert federal authority over cities led by Democratic officials, even when those local leaders oppose the deployments. Critics argue this is less about public safety and more about political theater in an election season. Supporters say it's about restoring law and order in cities they view as out of control. Closing. For now, all eyes remain on Portland, where the federal court will decide whether Oregon can block the president's order. The outcome could set a precedent for how far the White House can go in using the military domestically, and whether states have the final word in how their streets are policed. Judge Simon's ruling is expected by Friday. Until then, the standoff continues.